This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
A shortage of skilled labor and nagging inflation from strong wage growth on the U.S. Gulf Coast are pressuring liquefied natural gas, LNG, developers and delaying some projects from reaching a financial go-ahead. There are 5 LNG plants under development in Texas and Louisiana and 16 others on the drawing board in the U.S. looking to secure investment and customers. The 5 under construction would add a combined 86.6 million metric tons per annum of the super-chilled gas, enough to keep the U.S. as the world's largest exporter for years to come. With labor costs jumping as much as 20% since 2021, busting construction budgets and squeezing projected returns for those firms still trying to attract new investors, the fate of some of the early projects has become less certain.
Russia's oil and gas revenue in June is set to rise by more than 50% year-on-year to $9.4 billion, Reuters calculations showed, after a decrease in subsidies to refineries and reflecting the Russian economy's ability to limit the impact of sanctions. These revenues have been the most important single source of cash for the Kremlin, accounting for around a third to a half of total federal budget proceedings for the last decade. The military conflict in Ukraine has prompted the West to impose multiple sanctions aimed at curbing Russian oil and gas income that accounts for about a third of the country's federal budget.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
Indian imports of Russian coal have declined while U.S. shipments have risen in the 3 months ending in May, data from coal consultancy Big Mint showed, which traders attributed to Russian supplies becoming less competitive. Russia's exports of all types of coal to India over the period fell 22.4% from a year earlier to 6.76 million metric tons, Big Mint's data showed. U.S. exports rose 14.4% to 6.68 million tons in the same period. The decline in Indian imports of Russian coal was driven by a 67% plunge year-on-year in shipments of thermal coal, used mainly for power generation. Purchases of steelmaking grades such as coking coal, anthracite and pulverized coal injection coal rose during the period, the Big Mint data showed.
Crude oil prices edged lower on Tuesday, pressured by a stronger dollar, while investors shifted focus to U.S. inflation data due this week. Losses were limited, however, by escalating geopolitical tensions and hopes of improved demand this summer. Brent futures for August settlement were down 50 cents, or 0.6%, at $85.51 a barrel by 12:22 GMT. U.S. crude futures also dipped by 54 cents, or 0.7%, to $81.09. Both benchmarks gained about 3% last week, marking 2 straight weeks of gains. Next, we have the top news in metal markets. Copper prices slipped on Tuesday as a firmer dollar spurred a bout of selling, with stalled demand growth in top consumer China and soaring inventories reinforcing negative sentiment. Benchmark copper on the London Metal Exchange traded 0.2% down at $9,642 a metric ton in official rings. It has dropped 13% since speculative buying took prices to record highs above $11,100 on May 20th. Traders said a firmer dollar had triggered fund selling. A stronger U.S. currency makes metals more expensive for holders of other currencies.
Weak global manufacturing has hit aluminium prices, but the impact is likely to be short-lived as the physical market is tight, including in top consumer China. A deficit in top producer China, expected to produce 42.5 million metric tons, close to its 45 million ton capacity, and short supplies of feedstocks bauxite and alumina are expected to push aluminium prices back on an upward trajectory. Prices of the metal used in the transport, construction and packaging industries at around $2,520 a ton on the London Metal Exchange have dropped 10% since hitting 2-year highs of $2,799 last month.
We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector.
A heat wave due to spread throughout Europe this week is set to take a heavy toll on summer crops in the southeast but is good news for farmers on the other side of the region after prolonged rains flooded fields and hampered plants growth, analysts said. Meteorologists forecast scorching temperatures in most parts of the European Union this week, just as record heat and dry weather are threatening crops in other major global growing regions, hitting world supplies and pushing prices higher. Weather is key for crops as harvest nears in the northern hemisphere, and any sign of damage or relief can make prices swing. High yield reports and showers in parched wheat fields in top exporter Russia sent global wheat prices off 10 months highs in recent weeks.
That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.